There we go. Got some Charlie Brown blues. The Charlie Brown Thanksgiving soundtrack. Okay. I think I am good and up and running on that, and let's see what else I can get. I've been a little disheveled today. I woke up late, got to work, survey work, not too bad, you know, survey's not the worst, and beat me up for some reason today. Like, yeah, my legs hurt today. Anyways, getting back, so trying to see what we got. And we did that one. Look at that. Easternmost Roman aqueduct discovered in Armenia. Oh, that sounds interesting. Humans hastened the extinction of the woolly mammoth. Okay, giant sea lizards roamed the waves while T-Rex roamed on land. Nah. Victorian woman writer who refused to let doctors define her. That's a weird way to put it. The Victorian woman writer. Is it just because I'm bad with W's? Victorian woman writer. Huh. Weird. Anyways. Diet trumps drugs for anti-aging and good metabolic health. That is not mine. I don't want general science, I just want... We did that one. How the ancient Romans went to the bathroom. I don't know if that's a question you guys ever asked, but we're asking it today. Inside the local movement to recover Colombia's river turtles now. Climate change is transforming the bodies of the Amazonian birds. Humans hasten the extinction. We got that. Partial skull of a child of Homo naledi. We will do that one. Butterfly Ray is found. The real Betty Crocker may never have existed, but she still became a symbol for American women. Half of these... how coastal darkening is harming kelp forests. Some whales can eat upwards of 16 tons. Could skin patches be the future for COVID vaccines? That's all modern stuff. How is that archaeology? Discovered tires are ghost fishing hermit crabs. What does the future hold for the Joshua Tree? 7 important questions about COVID antivirals answered. That is not archaeology. Why? Oh, because it's in the science. Secret excavations of Jerusalem. Gibraltar. Survivors of a deadly virus used fever passes to prove their immunity. Defense of King George. The untold story of the Portuguese diplomat who saved thousands from the Nazis. Oh, this is all like not what I want. Okay. Key adaptations. No, okay. There is one thing I wanted to do, and I came across it. I wonder if I can find it real quick for you guys, because it was actually a really, really interesting article. I was doing some research, trying to straighten out stuff for PhD applications, and this came out. Let me see. No, that's not it. No, that's not what I want. Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118 No. Ugh, I should have kept the article open. Really, I should have. It would have been much more useful to do it that way. Than to think, oh yeah, I can pull it up last second. No, just leave the article open. I've always got like a billion tabs open on my computer, and they'll stay open for days. I put my computer into hibernation, but I don't know if I'm gonna find it, and I don't want to take too long to try and find it. Ooh, maybe. Aha, yes. Most excellent. Bam. Okay. Okay, I am ready. Sorry for the delay. I hope all of you had a wonderful weekend and are excited to get started with some archaeology, anthropology, any type of things having to do with humans in the past. Like I said, I'm pretty tired. I've just been off. I think daylight savings really screwed me up for some reason. Like, my sleeping schedule has been way off since then, but I gotta get my stuff together. Get my shit together. Okay. An archaeological dig reignites the debate over the Old Testament's historical accuracy. Let's see. So if you guys aren't aware, people will use a lot. There are like biblical archaeologists out there, and not just biblical. People take these ancient religious texts and they utilize them to try and locate cities that were discussed in these texts. Not just the Bible, they do it for like the Iliad, so they think they found Troy and such. So it's really interesting. I think it's actually extremely valuable, regardless of what your religious subscription may be. These are, though they've been rewritten so many times, if you try to go with older things, with older versions of it, it is a history. There are some grains of truth in like discussion of certain cities and stuff. It's interesting, and it can be very valuable, especially if Christianity has shaped so much of the world. Same with other major religions that you can find people that subscribe to them all over the globe. So linking that to actual physical historical evidence is really interesting, valuable, and can help craft how these religions formed and how it's also interwoven into history of those locations. So let's see what this one's saying. December 2021. It's not December yet. What are you doing? Archaeological dig reignites the debate over the Old Testament's historical accuracy. If you stand on one of the outcroppings of the Timna Valley, the most salient fact of the place is emptiness. Here in the heat-blasted flatlands of the Arava Desert, off a lonely road in southern Israel, it seems there's nothing but stark cliffs and rock formations all the way to the jagged red wall. Okay. They've got 3,200-year-old hieroglyphs. On a boulder are the outlines of ghostly chariots. A tunnel vanishes into a hillside, the walls marked with the energetic strikes of bronze chisels. There were once people here, and they were looking for something. Okay. Oh, pebbles of emerald streak across the cave, so they were mining. That's cool. That's such an interesting place. Look at that. That is beautiful. Solomon's Pillars, the discovery of the 13th century BC, Egyptian temple at the base of the cliffs, upended historians' understanding of the site. When the archaeologist Erez Ben Yosef arrived at the ancient copper mines of Timna in 2009, he was 30 years old. The site wasn't on Israel's archaeological A-list or even his B-list. It wasn't the Jerusalems of Jesus or the famous citadel of Masada, where Jewish rebels committed suicide rather than surrender to Rome. It was the kind of place unimportant enough to be entrusted to someone with fresh credentials and no experience leading a dig. Ah, that's kind of a bash right there, isn't it? Like, damn. That's harsh. At the time, Ben Yosef wasn't interested in the Bible. His field was paleomagnetism, the investigation of changes in the Earth's magnetic field over time, and specifically the mysterious spike of the 10th century BC, when magnetism leapt higher than at any time in history for reasons that are not entirely understood. Interesting. With that in mind, Ben Yosef and his colleagues from the University of California, San Diego, unpacked their shovels and brushes at the foot of the Sandhill Cliff and started digging. Okay, got organic material, seeds. Took them to the Oxford University for carbon dating. They didn't expect any surprises. The site had been conclusively dated by another expedition that had uncovered the ruins of the temple dedicated to an Egyptian goddess. The conclusion was firmly established that the local tourism board, in the attempt to draw visitors to this remote location, had put up kitschy statues in walk like an Egyptian poses. Okay. So the results came back and they showed that excavation. Okay, so began the latest revolution. Okay, they just said this was something else. What did it show? Why has he got it? Just tell me the facts. Don't make this all fancy. Showing just how much can be a placing. It seems first glance. Okay, talking about people visiting. Okay, I just want to know. Ooh. Black slag, a byproduct of copper smelting, which separates the precious metal from molten core. The slag still litters the ancient smelting sites. Ooh. Okay, so we're in this area here. Bam. Israel zoomed in. Down at the tip. Just about. Okay, so yeah, they're getting copper. Picked up sherds that were lying around and yes, if you didn't know, sherd is for pottery. So broken up pottery, we call them pieces of sherd. Or whereas if it's glass, it's shard. Sherd and shard. Dating back 3,000 years to one of the most storied points of biblical history, the time of Solomon, King David's son, renowned for his wealth and wisdom according to the Hebrew Bible. Solomon's kingdom stretched from Syria to the north to the Red Sea in the south, uniting the fractious Israelite tribes and serving as high water mark of Jewish power in the ancient world. So, and if the dating was correct, he knew he was standing in King Solomon's mines. If that phrase gives you a jolt of excitement, as we can presume it did Gloek, it is because of the British writer H. Rider Haggard, whose 1885 novel King Solomon's Mines was a sensation. The book is set not in the Holy Land, but in the fictional African kingdom of Kukuanaland. The protagonist and the adventurer Alan Quatermain, whose search for the mines leads him to the African interior and into a cathedral-sized cavern where he finds a trove of diamonds as large as eggs and gold ingots stamped with Hebrew letters. After much prayer, okay, but I don't care about this fictitious Okay. Talking about, okay, Patrick Swayze. In the Bible, King Solomon is said to have been rich in precious metals and to have used vast quantities of copper for features of his Jerusalem temple, such as the Molten Sea, a giant basin that rested on the back of 12 metal oxen. But the phrase King Solomon's mines actually appears nowhere in the Bible and was coined by the novelist. Glueck, like any archaeologist then and now, had a bit of a novelist in him, which might be a necessary improvisation that requires you to imagine a majestic temple based on what a normal observer would swear was just a pile of rocks. He knew that most people are attracted less to ruins than to the stories we tell about them, whether about ancient Rome or Machu Picchu in the Holy Land. Interest in archaeology is especially intense because so many of our most potent stories are set here. The biblical chronicles describe numerous battles between the polity that ruled this area, the kingdom of Edom, and the Israelites who lived in the north. Glueck theorized that captives from those wars were sent to those mines. One natural acropolis with the remains of a wall gave him the impression of being also a prison camp, where he drafted laborers were forcibly retained. He called the outcropping Slaves Hill, a name and retains to this day. Okay. The ruins of an Egyptian temple near Solomon's Pillars. Thousands of cultic artifacts, including many depictions of the cow-eared goddess Hathor. Okay, I think I'm back. Yes. I think I'm back. Okay. Hold on. Is this good? Okay, good. Good. Okay, let's continue on. What are we finding? Ooh. Reconstruction of a smelting furnace with bellows, or placed in the charcoal burning chamber, disintegrates. Molten slag drains out. Copper remains. Interesting. Okay. So, illustration of King Solomon. Wow, this just goes on and on. Collect samples on Slaves Hill, a central copper smelting site active around 1000 BC. Miners extracted copper from green veins of malachite and chalcocite. The deposits in sandstone throughout the valley and below ground are still visible today. So, yeah, they still got a bunch of it. Ooh. Clay tuyere, or nozzle that was used to direct air from the bellows into the furnace. What is that? Wool? Wow. Royal purple dye derived from sea snails suggests the smelters were wealthy and engaged in distant trade. Interesting. They found wool? That's crazy. Recovered fabrics, probably from clothing, plant, and animal dyes, yield clues to the miners' technology, social hierarchy, agriculture, and economy. We got some fabrics. Well, I found purple wool. Purple was, like, expensive. Formation known as the Mushroom. The landmark is surrounded by ancient smelting sites. Okay. Pharaoh Susinus, a cast from Arava copper, he ruled Egypt during the 11th century. This just goes on and on. Okay, so they found a mining site, so that's cool. Nice. Very nice. If you guys are interested in reading the entire article, you can. It's on the SmithsonianMagazine.com, and if you just look up Archaeological Dig reunites debate over Old Testament historical accuracy, you'll find it. Alright, next. Sorry, I get a little impatient when they bring all this other stuff in, like they were talking about Patrick Swayze and a movie he was in. Like, we all know Hollywood doesn't get things 100%. Why are we talking about that? And then this book, I guess, was kind of mentions something about being that was in the Bible, but it's just, it was too flowery for my taste. Okay, easternmost Roman aqueduct discovered in Armenia. Archaeologists from the University of Munster and the National Academy of Sciences of the Republic of Armenia have discovered remains of a Roman aqueduct during excavation work on the Hellenistic royal city of Artasata. Artaxata. I'm trying here, guys. In ancient Armenia. It is the easternmost aqueduct in the Roman Empire. Excavation work took place back in 2019, and an evaluation of the find has now been published in the Archäologischer Einzeiger journal. The monumental foundations are evidence of an unfinished aqueduct bridge built by the Roman Empire between 114 and 117 CE, explains author Lichtenberger from the Institute of Classical Archaeology and Christian Archaeology at the University of Munster. At that time, Artaxata was destined to become the capital of a Roman province in Armenia. It was during this time that the Roman Empire reached its greatest extent, if only for a short while, because it was under Trajan, who was emperor of Rome from 98 to 117 CE, that the Romans attempted to incorporate the province of Armenia into the Roman Empire. So, map view of what it was. Okay. Oops. Nope. Okay. Where are we? Okay, so they got pretty far. The team used multidisciplinary combination of methods from the fields of archaeology, geophysics, geochemistry, and archaeoinformatics. The area of the Hellenistic metropolis of Artaxata in the Ararat plain was first examined geomagnetically. At this stage of their work, the experts surveyed and charted any anomalies. The geomagnetic image showed a conspicuous dotted line, which they analyzed with so-called sondages. The results were documented by the archaeologists three-dimensionally. Additional drillings provided evidence of further unfinished or destroyed pillars of the aqueduct. We used satellite pictures and infrared images from a drone to visualize the course of the aqueduct's pillars. We reconstructed the planned course of the aqueduct by means of a computer-assisted path analysis between the possible sources of the water and its destination. So, nice. Cool. They found the farthest point of an aqueduct. Humans hastened the extinction of the woolly mammoth. Oh, itchy nose. Walking around in agricultural fields does not help the sinuses. New research shows that humans had a significant role in the extinction of a woolly mammoth in Eurasia, occurring thousands of years later than previously thought. An international team of scientists led by researchers from the University of Adelaide and the University of Copenhagen has revealed a 20,000-year pathway to extinction for the woolly mammoth. Our research shows that humans were a crucial and chronic driver of population declines of woolly mammoths, having an essential role in the timing and location of their extinction. Using computer models, fossils, and ancient DNA, we have identified the very mechanisms and threats that were integral in the initial decline and later extinction of the woolly mammoth. Signatures of past changes in the distribution and demography of woolly mammoths identified from fossils and ancient DNA show that people hastened the extinction of woolly mammoths by up to 4,000 years in some regions. We know that humans exploited woolly mammoths for meat, skin, bones, and ivory. However, until now, it has been difficult to disentangle the exact roles that climate warming and human hunting had on its extinction. The study also shows that woolly mammoths are likely to have survived in the Arctic for thousands of years, longer than previously thought, existing in small areas of habitat with suitable climatic conditions and low densities of humans. Our findings of long-term persistence in Eurasia independently confirms recently published environmental DNA evidence that shows that woolly mammoths were roaming around Siberia 5,000 years ago. That's not long ago. Okay, our analysis strengthens and better resolves the case for human impacts as a driver of population declines and range collapses of megafauna in Eurasia during the late Pleistocene. It also refutes the prevalent theory that climate change alone decimated woolly mammoth populations and that the roles of humans was limited to hunters during the coup de grace. Yeah. It shows that species extinctions are usually the result of complex interactions between threatening processes. Well, we knew that. As far as I knew, that the theory was that they were on the decline, and then humans arrived and hunted them more, and I guess they had some holdouts in random places that were comfortable environmentally for them. So, interesting. Okay. How the ancient Romans went to the bathroom. Okay, so we've got Anne Olga Kolowski-Ostro. Her official title, the Queen of Latrines. That's not a title I would want. For the past 25 years, she has taken that label literally, spending much of her time in ancient Roman gutters. There's a lot you can find out about a culture when you look at how they managed their toilets. That's why I study it. Crossed paths with the Queen of Latrines after making an accidental discovery in Ephesus, which grew to prominence around the 2nd century and housed some 300,000 to 400,000 denizens. One day, I ambled into an open space drastically different from anything I'd seen before. In front of me was a long white marble bench with a row of holes shaped just like modern toilet seats, a Roman bathroom. Turning around, I discovered 2 more rows of holes, all together able to accommodate a small party. But the holes were cut so close to one another that I was left wondering how many people actually use them. Wouldn't they put you in the immediate proximity of someone else's butt? There was no dividers of any kind in between. Talk about not having inhibitions. conducting your private business next to a dozen other folks. I mean, they may have been that close, but I bet they do like what people do nowadays with urinals, where like you don't go to the urinal right next to somebody, you go one or two over. That's supposedly the etiquette with those. Female bathrooms are a bit different. You have stalls and stuff, a little bit more space, so if you go into one next to someone, it's not as big of a deal. But yeah, with like urinals, you take one away or two away, like you give people space, and so I bet people were doing that too. Second shallower one ran beneath my feet. It too was clearly built to carry water. Oh, okay, stone-lined gutter underneath the seats. Other questions brewed. Did the enclosure have a roof, doors, and windows? Were the stone seats hot in summer and cold in winter? Did toilet goers talk to each other? Did they shake hands after wiping? And what did they actually wipe with? Given that toilet paper is a fairly recent development, was this a man's room or a lady's room? This chance encounter left such a profound impression that I found myself obsessed, searching for answers that I had seemingly long since disappeared into the annals of history, or rather into its sewers. I was curious whether anyone had ever studied the topic, and sure enough, someone had. The archaeology of sanitation in Roman Italy, toilet sewers, and water systems. Okay, so we got that. Those don't look too close together. I mean, for modern sense, it's a little close. But, I mean, I don't think if you sat down, your thighs are going to be touching. I may be wrong on that. I may be wrong. I may be horribly wrong on that. There's no, like, scale here for me. Usually you have some sort of scale taking archaeological pictures. But, I don't know. If that's about the same size as this worn away area, that's going to be about where your butt goes. So, I mean, you're a little close, but you got some distance. But, my scaling may be completely off. Over a lovely conversation about bodily excretions in chamber pots, butt wiping habits, sewer vermin, and other equally unappetizing topics. Why would you say unappetizing? The ancient Romans' views on waste, hygiene, and toilet habits begin to take shape. The word latrine, or latrina in Latin, was used to describe a private toilet in someone's home, usually constructed over a cesspit. Public toilets were called foraceae. They were often attached to public baths, whose water was used to flush down the filth. Okay. Which is funny, because nowadays, if you say latrine, I always, like, that's kind of more of a military thing, and it's, like, kind of more like this, more like a bunch of public bathrooms for this group of soldiers to use, you know? You don't really say latrine anywhere else, at least in the US. Ooh. Okay. I mean, that's efficient, using the bath water to flush the toilets. Because the Roman Empire lasted for 2,000 years and stretched from Africa to the British Isles, Roman toilet attitudes varied geographically and over time. Well, of course. Generally speaking, however, the Romans had fewer inhibitions than people today. They were reasonably content sitting in close quarters. After all, Roman theater seats were rather close too, about 12 inches apart. 12 inches? I guess you're sitting cheek to cheek. And they were similarly at ease when taking communal. Oh, that's classy. Today, you pull down your pants and expose yourself, but when you had your toga wrapped around you, it provided a natural protection. The clothes they wore would provide a barricade so you could actually could do your business in relative privacy, get up and go, and hopefully your toga wasn't too dirty after that. If you compare the Forica with the modern urinal she has, it actually offers more privacy. Despite the lack of toilet paper, toilet goers did wipe. That's what the mysterious shallow gutter was for. The Romans cleaned their behinds with sea sponges attached to a stick, and the gutter supplied clean flowing water to dip the sponges in. This soft, gentle tool was called a tersorium, which literally meant a wiping thing. This is a replica of such sticks were used for a long time. I remember reading about that, which is interesting. They liked to move their bowels in comfort. Whether they washed their hands after that is another story. Maybe they dipped their fingers into an amphora by the door. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they did in some parts of the empire, but not in others. Worse, in the tersoria were probably reused and shared by all fellow butt wipers who came and went throughout the day. Yep, I was waiting to hear that one. They shared these sticks. I figured. I've read that before, but it's still gross. So if one of the Forico visitors had intestinal worms, all the others would carry them home, too, without any knowledge of how diseases spread. The overall Roman toilet setup could hardly be called hygienic by modern standards. Yeah, that they actually, tracing parasites, they actually were able to do it using these sticks from, like, Western China area all the way over to Western Europe and stuff, and along the Silk Road. They were able to track certain parasites and everything using these sticks. Though they look advanced for an ancient civilization, Roman public toilets were far from glamorous. The white marble seats gleaming in the sun may look clean now, but that was hardly the case when these facilities were operational. I mean, of course. Think of a public restroom today. They are not very nice. People are gross. They had low roofs and tiny windows that let in little light. People sometimes missed the holes, so the floors and seats were often soiled. Yep, the same thing happens today. The air stunk. Think about it, how often does someone come and wipe off that marble? In fact, she thinks the facilities were so unwelcoming that the empire's elite only used them under great duress. I mean, modern day, you see a porta potty and stuff. People tend to only use those if they absolutely have to. We're kind of the same. Upper class Romans, who sometimes paid for the forae to be erected, generally wouldn't set foot in these places. They constructed them for the poor and the enslaved. But not because they took pity on the lower classes. They built these public toilets so they wouldn't have to walk knee-deep in excrement on the streets. Just like any other civilization that chose to urbanize, the Romans were up against a problem. What to do with all this waste? The Romans' elite viewed public toilets as an instrument that flushed the filth of the plebes out of their noble sight. In the Roman baths, it was common practice to inscribe the name of the benefactor who paid to build the facility. But toilet walls bear no such writing. It seems that no one in Rome wanted to be associated with the toilet. I can't blame you. You know? That's not a glamorous thing. That's so gross. So they're saying water flowed through this, and they would use that to dip the sponge in so they could wipe their butts. Why would refined noblemen want to sit next to common people who had lice, open wounds, skin sores, diarrhea, and other health problems? That wasn't the worst of it. The sewers underneath the public toilets were a welcoming home to vermin. Rats, snakes, and spiders would come up from down below. Plus, the decomposing sewage may have produced methane, which could ignite, quite literally lighting a fire under someone. That's probably where the saying comes from. Neither were the public toilets built to accommodate women. By the 2nd century, public latrines were constructed in the areas of the city where men had business to do. Maybe an enslaved girl who was sent to the market would venture in out of necessity, although she would fear being mugged or raped. But an elite Roman woman wouldn't be caught dead in there. Back at their comfortable villas, wealthy citizens had their own personal latrines, constructed over cesspools, but even they may have preferred the more comfortable, less smelly option of chamber pots, which enslaved people were forced to empty into garden patches. The elite didn't want to connect their cesspools to the sewer pipes because that would likely bring the vermin and stink into their homes. Instead, they hired stercorai, manure movers, to empty their pits. 11 asses may have been paid for the removal of manure. What? Why? I don't want that. That's Christmas music. I don't want Christmas. It ain't Christmas time. We ain't doing Christmas. Okay. The famous Roman sewers were another story. At the height of its power, Rome had to clean up after about 1 million people. An average adult produces about a pound of waste a day. So a 500-ton pile of feces is a mind-boggling image. I don't want to imagine that. While Roman farmers understood the waste fertilizing value and put some of it back into the fields, the city couldn't recycle it fast enough. To flush that much excrement out of the city daily, one needs a truly massive system. It's actually a really important thing. Like, I know they kind of painted it as the rich people didn't want to have to deal with the poor peoples, but it was beneficial for all of society to have some form of sewage system to help the plebes, they said, the poor, to a way to deal with their waste. So just kind of how things are structured in a society, you have more in the lower classes, more individuals in the lower classes than you do in the upper classes, and they're going to live in smaller, more compact homes and more like apartment type facilities. So you have more people crammed into a smaller place. A way to deal with that waste is really, really important. If people aren't able to deal with it, you end up with all kinds of issues. Not just, oh, you might step in something, but disease is going to run rampant. You're going to have disease, people are going to be dying everywhere, you're going to have people who can't work because it's so, like, just disgusting of an area. So dealing with this was a huge undertaking and something that was of most importance when moving into a large city like that. The Romans did everything on grand scale, including filth removal. They initially gleaned their sewer technology from the Greeks. Oh yeah, this manure removers, that's no different than someone coming out and cleaning out your septic tank. Except we probably have a better system to be able to draw the stuff out instead of what they probably had to do. They initially gleaned their sewer technology from the Greeks. In her book, Koloski Ostro attributes this technology transfer to Hellenistic cultural forces and Roman soldiers who started building latrines in military camps. Okay, so the greatest sewer, or Cloaca Massima, was named after the Roman goddess, the cleanser, from the Latin verb cluo, meaning to clean. This latrine moved millions of gallons of water every day. It was so immense that Greek geographer and historian Strabo wrote that Rome's sewers were big enough for wagons loaded with hay to pass, and for veritable rivers to flow through them. Painting of the Cloaca Maxima by artist Christopher. The sewer accomplished several things. It drained the excess water from the city, rid the people of their waste, and generally carried away everything they didn't want, discharging it into the river Tiber. It also drained water from the surrounding swamps and river valleys, preventing floods. Roman author Pliny the Elder wrote that when the rivers surrounding Rome spilled into the sewers with unrelenting force, the sewers withstood Mother Nature's wrath, directing the currents down to the Tiber, where the triple arc outlet of the Cloaca Massima still stands today. When the sewers clogged up or needed other repairs, a considerable amount of money was spent on keeping them functioning. Despite many earthquakes, floods, collapsed buildings, and other cataclysms, the Roman sewers stood strong over centuries. They really wanted to deal with this issue. They really needed to deal with it. Built it strong. So it solved Rome's sewage removal problems, but it didn't solve the city's health issues. It carried the filth out of the city and dumped it into the Tiber, polluting the very water some citizens depended on for irrigation. Of course it did. No longer had to see or smell their excrement. They hadn't done much to eliminate its hazardous nature. Through the next several centuries, as humankind kept concentrating in cities, it would find itself in a bitter battle with its own waste, seemingly with no way to win. Well, that is one way to end it. That was an excellent ending. Nice. That was a good ending. That was an interesting article. I hope you guys learned something. Yeah, might have been gross, but they didn't know about these things. They didn't know about this. They didn't know about like modern hygienic practices, how disease transferred and such. So it was pretty good compared to what they could have had, I guess. Yeah. Anyways, we're done talking about toilets. I'm gonna go ahead and go on to this because I'm coming up on an hour and I'm kind of tired, to be honest. So I came across this: fetal daughters influence mother's milk, which was so interesting. Using 2.39 million lactation records from 1.49 million dairy cows, we demonstrate that the sex of the fetus influences the capacity of the mammary gland to synthesize milk during lactation. Cows favored daughters, producing significantly more milk for daughters than for sons across lactation. Using a sub-sample of this data set, we further demonstrate that the effects of fetal sex interact dynamically across lactations, whereby the sex of the fetus being gestated can enhance or diminish the production of milk during an established lactation. Moreover, the sex of the fetus gestated on the first pregnancy has persistent consequences for milk synthesis on the second lactation. So once you become pregnant, the cow becomes pregnant, the fetus's sex, so cows don't have gender, we talk about those two things differently. Sex is the physical anatomy, the X chromosome and the Y chromosome. So depending on what the fetus was, could affect the lactation ability of the cow for its next pregnancy. So mammalian females pay high energetic costs for reproduction. Generally, the greatest costs are imposed by lactation. Because the synthesis of milk requires mobilization of bodily reserves to nourish developing young, more succinctly, females dissolve parts of themselves to nourish their babies. In evolutionary biology, substantial research has been dedicated to understanding how mothers direct care and nourishment to their young in relation to their own condition and where they are at their reproductive careers. Infant characteristics may also influence how mothers invest, and the characteristic of greatest interest to evolutionary biologists has been whether they are rearing a son or a daughter. Biologists have proposed numerous hypotheses for sex-biased maternal investment, but the most well-known and investigated remains the Trivers-Willard hypothesis. Trivers and Willard hypothesized that a female, as a function of her condition, is expected to preferentially allocate resources to the sex that provides greater marginal return on that investment. In mating systems with male-to-male competition, they predicted that good-conditioned females favor sons because males are thought to benefit more from additional investment than to daughters. However, few studies have directly addressed sex-biased milk synthesis, and none have investigated whether fetal sex has an effect during gestation when the mammary gland is hormonally prepared for later milk production. So, collaborative approach. Holstein's biased milk production in favor of daughters, not sons. Cows produced significantly more milk over the 305 days of standard lactation after gestating a daughter. This effect was strongest in cows on their first lactation, likely because substantial changes occurred in the mammary gland the first time it gears up for milk synthesis. The percent fat and protein in milk did not differ between cows that had gestated a son or daughter. Okay. So the quality of the milk was the same, but because the quantity was higher after gestating a daughter, the total kilograms of milk, fat, and protein after gestating a daughter were higher than after gestating a son. Interesting. Moreover, these effects had complex interactions across lactations. The sex of the fetus on the first pregnancy not only influenced milk on the first lactation, so did the fetus on the second pregnancy, because first lactation and second pregnancy overlapped in time. Cows that gestated a son and then another son synthesized significantly less milk on the first lactation. Cows that first gestated a son and then a daughter on the second pregnancy could partially rescue milk production, but remained substantially lower than for cows that had a daughter on their first pregnancy. Additionally, cows that had a son on their first pregnancy were handicapped in their milk production even on their second lactation, especially if they had also had a son on their second pregnancy. Specifically, cows with two daughters back-to-back produced 445 kilograms more milk across the first two lactations than did cows with back-to-back sons. Our results for the first time identify a dramatic and sustained programming of mammary function by offspring sex in utero. Maternal nutrition and hormones are known to have pronounced and long-term effects on offspring, but the ways in which offspring have sustained physiological effects on mom are less known. How does the fetus mechanically influence milk synthesis? It's likely that hormones from fetus and placenta may differ between fetal sons and daughters. Subsequently enter the maternal bloodstream and affect the milk producing cells in the mammary gland. One evolutionary explanation is that the mammalian mothers may have physiological adaptations to respond to fetal daughters. Warm milk for daughters may allow them to mature faster and initiate reproduction at relatively longer ages than do sons. A daughter's lifetime reproductive output, a target of natural selection, is limited by time because pregnancy and lactation are of a largely fixed duration. In species in which males compete for access to females, males generally have a longer period of development before reproducing, so they have more time to compensate for deficits in the milk they received from their mother. As such, mothers may be able to underinvest in a son with relatively less consequences for the number of offspring he will go on to sire. I don't know. There was reading about, I think it was chimpanzees, not bonobos, it was chimpanzees. They were discussing about how a mother will actually put off weaning their child if it's a male sooner than for longer. They'll put it off longer than they will for a female. So if they have a daughter, they will wean her much sooner than they will wean a male. And they also found that depending on the social status of the mother, that drastically affects the how long it will take her to the point of weaning her infant too. So a lower socially placed female will wean her children quicker than a higher placed socially female. And they believe that it was due to her lower status. She wanted to wean her children off quicker in order to present herself as a viable mate again sooner. Whereas a higher ranking female might invest more time in breastfeeding a son rather than a daughter, because the son will place higher in the social rankings than a daughter will. So I wonder did they take into consideration of, I mean, they're dairy cows, so humans are kind of okay, detailed record-keeping, large sample size, powerful model for exploration of milk synthesis, removed from the dam within hours of parturition. The model system allowed us to investigate mechanism during pregnancy of sex-based biased milk synthesis independently of postnatal maternal care and suckling behavior. Oh, okay. So because they're dairy cows, we take the calves away so that humans can have the milk. So purely the situation I was talking about on weaning their infants isn't going to come into place. Of course, I should have thought of that. They're dairy cows. So whether I'm curious if they would have weaned their infant differently as well. I don't know. Dairy cows are kind of a unique thing. They've been messed with genetically, and not like genetically been messed with how you might think in a lab, but like we've been breeding them so much that they're not quite the same as like wild similar animals. But I'm curious if the like time spent, so postnatal maternal care is gonna reflect that difference. So they're talking purely hormonal, which is very interesting. This is able to take a kind of a social effect on this and purely go with a biological effect on it. So that's interesting. So we kind of want our dairy cows to have females. We'll get more milk out of it. Curious why it does it, though. You scared me, Gally. The dog. Her nails need to be clipped, so they were all ticky-tacky. Anyways, I thought this was super interesting. I hope you guys did too. The fact that the sex of the fetus affects milk production and the hormones of the cow, super interesting. It'd be cool to follow this to other mammals as well, not just cows, but they were able to have such like a controlled situation since we removed the cows from the infants from the cows so early. We'd have to replicate that with some other animal. I don't think, I mean, I guess we could, well, at least not in here in the US, but in some other countries where different types of milk are used, you might be able to replicate similarly these results, and it would be interesting to compare. And then it would also be interesting to compare humans as well, but I don't see those controlled situations to come about with humans. So anyways, yeah, that's it for today, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and sign out. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I will return next Tuesday, 4 o'clock. Yeah, hope to see you guys then. If you're interested, follow me on Twitter. I have a Twitter account too, where I kind of just repost other anthropologists' stuff out there. Scientific Twitter can be kind of cool. I do have a Discord for this channel, so if you're interested in joining that, you are more than welcome. We sometimes do movie nights where we'll watch documentaries, or we'll watch some pop culture things and kind of tear them apart. Pop culture related to archaeology and kind of tear them apart, or human evolution, in either one of those. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. As I have said before, I need to come up with like some smooth closing line, but we'll see. I don't know. Anyways, have a good night.